Hello everyone, welcome back. It is Saturday, March the 5th, and I wanted to get started on this video. 25 years after the death of Diana, Harry still assigns blame for the pain he can't let go of. I believe a lot of the confusion that he has and clouds his judgment with Meghan is the pain that he experiences and that he can't get over, so he wants to blame his family and generational pain and be mad at them because they didn't openly talk about it. But he also could have brought it up. I'm sure they would have talked to him, or if he said he needed someone to talk to. But I think he just knows the pain he was in, and Meghan was able to use his fragile state and manipulate him to think that she was going through something similar to him, and he was trying to fix it for her. But you can't fix someone else's pain. They have to fix it themselves. We all have to do the work, do the healing, and be able to get over it ourselves. Nobody can fix it for us. And I think that's the part of the therapy that Harry needs to understand, or to get the right therapy instead of just coaching. I'm just not sure that he's getting what he needs to be able to truly help him to heal. Disclaimer, here's the disclaimer, and you can also find it in the description. Now I'm going to go ahead and get on with the story. This is something that was published a little while back. It's actually from May of 2021, but I hadn't seen it before that I'm aware of. Who knows, in my old age, I'm kind of, I can be a little bit forgetful too. But it's the 13 of the most explosive revelations from the me you can't see. But I remember watching this video and just thinking about it and dissecting it in my mind. But it's so much easier to do it when you have someone that's written it out. So it says the Duke of Sussex speaks of his and Meghan Markle's mental health struggles and how he learned to cope. And I want to say this, and I'll put the link in the video, but Bookworm 2 actually made a video, was it yesterday or the day before? But it was about Meghan Markle's mental health. And it was information that sources had given to her, and I know she had sat on it for a while, and she finally decided that she had been able to research as much as she could and felt confident in her sources. But she gives some explosive information that really will tie back to this, the me you can't see, the Oprah interview, just make everything that we read in the headlines make sense. Again, I don't know if it's true. I don't think it's things that can be confirmed, because I don't know of anybody except the royal family who would have access to it, but will say that it's alleged and that her sources provided it to her. But you really should go look at it, because I found it to be very eye-opening and fascinating, and she does a great job. She's very thorough, but you really should go look at Bookworm's video, Meghan Markle. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I apologize. All right, Prince Harry has again sat down with Oprah Winfrey for a candid discussion about his mental health struggles and the importance of seeking health, in a wide-ranging interview in which he touched on the loss of his mother and the treatment of his wife, Meghan Markle. For Harry, this meant opening up about topics ranging from his mother, Princess Diana's tragic death, and his oh God, I don't know, I'm going to have trouble. I'm sorry, you see the word. But anyway, and his fear and anxiety of paparazzi, and his eventual decision to seek therapy, as well as the steps he has taken to ensure history does not repeat itself. Let me see if I can turn off my notifications here. Okay. All right. I think that's better. Forgive me. All right, let's see if I can pick up the ball and move faster. During the documentary, Harry reflected on his decision to seek mental health counseling, telling Winfrey that he had never felt like he needed therapy growing up, nor he was in an environment where he could be encouraged to talk about it either. Just because your family is maybe the type that, don't dwell on emotions or don't talk about it, they probably felt that they were doing right not to bring it up and mention it to them. But if Harry had brought it up himself, I'm sure they would have talked about it or found help for him. But he can't blame them because it was an open conversation at the dinner table. When Winfrey asked what made Harry think he needed to seek therapy, he responded, "The past, to heal myself from the past." I think he's still got a lot of healing to do, in my opinion. Later in the series, he revealed that it was on Meghan's suggestion that he finally went to therapy after the couple had had an argument, and that in that moment he had reverted back to a 12-year-old Harry. Well, I think he stays at the point where he's that 12-year-old Harry, and I don't believe it was Meghan that suggested initially that he get help, but that it was William and Kate. Remember, they were doing the heads together, but whoever he wants to give credit to, this is Harry's story, not mine. According to the Duke, his late 20s were a hectic time in his life, with Harry describing himself as the yes man who would perform royal duties all over the world. After experiencing burnout, he told Winfrey that he visited doctors, therapists, and alternative therapists, but that it was meeting Meghan that encouraged him to really seek mental health help. Well, I'm sure it was, because I think that Meghan was always a huge fan of Princess Diana, and that she shared a lot of Harry's feelings about his mother, and I think she would encourage those feelings and just make matters worse for Harry and perhaps give him advice that wasn't the best advice. I saw all sorts of people, but it was meeting and being with Meghan, he recalled. I knew that if I didn't do the therapy and fix myself, that I was going to lose this woman who I could see spending the rest of my life with. I think the sad thing here is I think they both have a lot of issues, and I don't think that they can fix one another, and I'm not sure that some of the things that they have going on, especially Meghan, in my opinion, and allegedly, that can be fixed. I think awareness can be brought to her, but I just don't think she's going to listen to anyone. Speaking with Winfrey about the years leading up to the death of his mother, the Duke of Sussex revealed that when he thinks about the late Princess of Wales, the first memory that comes to mind is always the same one over and over again. Strapped in the car, seatbelt across, with my brother in the car as well, and my mother driving, being chased by 3, 4, 5 mopeds with paparazzi on, and she was always unable to drive because of tears. There was no protection, he recalled. Well, we know when she was in her accident, they said that she wasn't wearing a seatbelt. I'm sure he must have had a lot of trauma and dreams and stuff, and I'm not minimizing anything that he's went through. But we have to remember, too, Harry, that she refused the royal protection. It wasn't removed from her. So there's things that you need to be clear of, and that I think that you have a belief about that where, let's just say, facts may vary. According to Harry, the memory also raises in him a feeling of helplessness, of being too young to protect his mother. He felt bitter at having to share his mother's funeral with the world. This I don't understand. He was talking about when Princess Diana died in 97, and it was watched by 30 million people worldwide. He said he admitted that he didn't want the royal life anymore at that point. The outpouring of love and support from her fans and supporters was overwhelming on that day. Sharing the grief of my mother's death with the world, for me, the thing I remember most was the sound of the horses, the hooves going along the mall, the red brick road, he recalled. It was like I was outside of my body and just walking along, doing what was expected of me, showing 1/10 of the emotion everybody else was showing. I was like, this is my mom. You never even met her. I don't understand where his anger comes from at all of the people who were there mourning and grieving the loss, just like him. I just don't understand that whole sharing thing. But anyway, Princess Diana's death was never spoken about. He says following his mother's death, Harry said that he struggled to think about circumstances surrounding August 31st accident, as he felt there was no justice at all. And I'm sure, just like anybody that lost a family member or loved one, especially a child or a parent, to a tragic accident, they want answers, they want to understand, they need closure. But there's a lot of people out there that share this type of loss, that they go their entire life and they never get that closure. They never get those answers. But they have to try to move on and live their life as good as, just the best they can. He said, I was so angry with what happened to her, and the fact that there was no justice at all. Nothing came from that. The same people who chased her into the tunnel photographed her dying in the back seat of that car, he told Winfrey, adding that he also didn't want to think about his mother, because if I think about her, then it's going to bring up the fact that I can't bring her back, and it's just going to make me sad. I'm sure it makes you sad. I lost my father many years ago, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about him. I keep a picture of him on the side of my fridge, and as I'm making coffee in the mornings, I look at it and have thoughts about him, and in my mind talk to him. I don't think anybody ever gets over that. Sometimes it gets easier. You have good days, you have bad days, but I'm just not understanding Harry. When Winfrey asked whether others in the royal family talked about Harry and Prince William's late mother, the Duke said no one was talking about it. Again, I think it was to protect them. I don't think that's a topic of conversation they're going to bring up, but I also don't think they would avoid the conversation if Harry or William had brought it up. And I think that they did get them some type of therapy. I think I remember reading somewhere that when they were younger that they brought someone around. Maybe it wasn't in a clinical sense of therapy, but to make sure that they were coping and they were okay. Harry said he turned to drugs and alcohol to cope with his anxiety. According to Harry, his late 20s and 30s were a nightmare time in his life, during which he struggled with severe anxiety and often looked for ways to mask the pain. He was willing to drink, take drugs, willing to do the things that made him feel less like he was feeling. And during those times, he made a lot of poor choices, and the royal family covered for him. And there were times that they came out and apologized and perhaps didn't hold him accountable in the way that they should have, because he continued to do these things and act out and to rebel. The Duke, who served in the army for 10 years, which he rose to the rank of captain and served 2 tours of Afghanistan, described this point in his life without a question as his happiest time. Well, what bothers me then is, even though he's no longer in the military, he was serving as Captain General of the Royal Marines, an honor that was bestowed upon him from his grandfather, who had held that position for many years. Why didn't he tell Meghan, I really don't want to leave because this link to the military and the charity that he had set up, the Invictus Games, is something that makes him feel balanced and happy. According to Harry, his happiness stemmed from a feeling of belonging and being treated like everyone else. With the 36-year-old noting, I got to wear the same uniform as everybody else. I had to do all the same training as everyone, and I started from the bottom like everyone else. There was no special treatment because of who I was. Now, we've heard a lot of military people who've come out and said that wasn't the case, that they called him Xbox Harry, and that he was treated different, and he was protected, and he actually put their life in danger because he would have a target on his back, but that they had a protection group around him to keep him safe. So really, they were the targets on their back. In addition to happiness, Harry said he also felt his most normal while serving in the armed forces in Afghanistan as he was away from the media. The clicking of cameras makes his blood boil. During the documentary, Prince Harry also opened up about the early days of his and Meghan's relationship and the racist overtones frequently used to describe her in the media coverage. I don't think that it was frequently, and I think that there were a couple of headlines that were not nice, but I don't think that she suffered at the hands of the media anything like what Camilla and Catherine did. And I think that the royal family did all of they could to protect them, but they can't control what someone does or doesn't right. And for them to say that they hosted the media and kind of, held a soiree for them every year, that wasn't true at all. And I don't know if that's Harry truly misunderstanding or just, telling an outright mistruth. Within the first 8 days of his relationship being made public, which when they said Harry's girl almost straight out of Compton and that her exotic DNA will be thickening the royal blood, he remembered we would get followed, photographed, chased, and harassed. Now, I never saw them being papped or chased, and I'm sure they had a royal protection unit around them. But yes, those headlines were awful. They were appalling. But you can't say that everybody was doing this when it's just a handful of people. Same as we can't say the Sussex squad are all, attack everybody when I don't think that's the case. But I think a majority of them do, and we've witnessed that. According to Harry, the constant paparazzi presence, clicking of camera and flashes of camera still make his blood boil, as it brought him back to his childhood and his mother's experience being hounded by the media. Harry, you also need to know that your mother tipped off the media in many cases, and that she played a cat and mouse game with them and had her own little press corps kind of show up to make sure that she got the headlines and that she would outshine what the British monarchy was doing, just like Meghan has done, because they thought they were going to be the queen and loved by all. And Diana was loved and admired. But in the end, we saw her weaknesses and we saw things that she did. And later, as the truth came out, we realized that she was not a very well-balanced person and that she was angry, and I feel wanted to get back at the royal family. And she did so by getting leaks out to the media. And that wasn't the right thing to do. And she knew it was wrong. According to Harry, the constant paparazzi presence and the clicking of cameras, flashes, still made his blood boil. He also noted that social media added another layer to the harassment. Now, social media, I think, came around a few years after the death of Diana. I think she died in, was it August 31st, 97? He felt completely helpless and abandoned by the royal family, who refused to step in and help. They didn't refuse. I know that they did things. I mean, it was said that they did. They put out things trying to get them to stop writing. But you have to also realize that when you play games with people, you're not going to always have them on your side. They can turn on you at the drop of a hat, and they can also see through BS, or when you're not being truthful, or when you're trying to push your own narrative. Reflecting on the never-ending coverage and interest in his and Meghan's relationship, Harry revealed that he felt helpless, especially when requests for his family's intervention were ignored. Well, I don't think that they were ignored. Again, I think they did everything they could. They don't own the newspapers and they don't control it. And while Harry may want to control what people are allowed to say and do, it's not. It's called free speech, and people have a right to write about it, and they do their own research, and they have sources, to back up what they're saying. And if they don't, then you can certainly go after them and sue. I thought my life would help. I thought my family would help, but every single ask, request, warning, whatever it was, just got met with total silence or total neglect, he told Winfrey, adding that he and Meghan had done everything to try to make it work as members of the royal family, but that he was starting to struggle. I don't think that Harry and Meghan did themselves any favor. I think the way they acted, they made it worse. And then putting things out like, we're going to choose to speak to certain groups. Well, that's going to make the press dig even harder to try to find dirt on you. I mean, all the things that you did and just trying to have control over it, you actually made you lose control. On Meghan's suicidal thoughts and Harry's shame over not being able to do more to help, I do think that this right here really fits Bookworm 2's video on Meghan Markle's mental health. And again, check for the link in the description. I don't want to tell you much because it's her story. It's for her to report. So you need to go there and listen to it. But I think this will make a lot more sense. So during the couple's first sit-down interview with Winfrey in March, Meghan revealed she had experienced suicidal thoughts toward the end of their time in the UK before referencing a 2019 photo taken of her and Harry on their way to a concert at Royal Albert Hall as the day she told her husband about her feelings. We remember that. And that night, Harry looked very concerned, but Meghan had the biggest smile on her face. She seemed very happy and looked, very beautiful that night. So you would have never known that she was having those thoughts. But again, I can't speak for anybody else, and mental health is not something that should be taken lightly. But I think that one of the things that she found difficult was blending in and being a working team member of the royal family. I think she thought that if she was more popular, that she could be the queen instead of Catherine, and that she would be the most loved like Princess Diana was in her time. And that just wasn't going to happen because we didn't see a sincere Meghan. We saw someone who wanted to be in the spotlight, who was not doing engagements as a representative of the crown and Her Majesty, but trying to be in the limelight and be popular. And that's where she went wrong, in my opinion. So let's see. Did I go through all of that? I think so. And he goes on to say, speaking with Winfrey during the documentary, Harry spoke candidly about the moment from his perspective, with the Duke revealing that earlier that evening his wife had shared with him the suicidal thoughts and the practicalities of how she was going to end her life. Well, it's good that she spoke out to him, but how do we know that she wasn't just saying all of this and playing on Harry's fragile mental health just to get him to up and leave, and then saying all these negative things that the family wasn't helping and that the firm was not helping? I just don't believe that was the case. I believe they would have done anything, and I think you'll find that they did do a lot to help her and protect her when you see Bookworm's video. She hadn't lost it. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't self-medicating, be it through pills or alcohol. She was absolutely sober. Maybe that was one of the things that she couldn't cope with. Maybe there was some medication that she needed to be taking. Maybe she was someone who dulled the pain by self-medicating, pretty much like Harry did. It says she was completely sane, yet in the quiet of the night, these thoughts woke her up. According to Prince Harry, what stopped Meghan, who was at 6 months pregnant at the time, from acting on these thoughts was how unfair it would be on him after everything had happened to his mom, and to put into a position of losing another woman in his life with a baby inside of her own belly. Well, some of us aren't sure that she ever carried a child. Allegedly, in our own opinions. Reflecting on the day now, Harry said that he was ashamed of his response, telling Winfrey that due to the duties expected of them, they had cuddled briefly before making their way to the charity event, where he had to pretend as though everything was okay. Well, he wasn't pretending very well, but she certainly was, because you wouldn't have thought she had a care in the world that night. It was the night she had on the long black sequin dress. When the couple's son Archie was born, it became one of the biggest reasons to leave, according to Harry, as he wanted to be able to focus solely on their child rather than constantly worrying whether his wife was going to end up like his mother, and I'm going to have to look after him myself. Harry will never be bullied into silence. Harry says of the couple's eventual decision to step down from their roles as senior members of the royal family, Harry said that he no longer wanted to feel trapped and controlled through fear both by the media and by the system itself, adding that speaking about this kind of trauma was not encouraged by the firm. Harry said, but certainly now I will never be bullied into silence. Harry, nobody wants you to be silent. I think we just want you to get help and heal and do this in a private way, but so that you can get better. And I think people generally want you to get better and Meghan to get better. Harry tries EMDR and reveals why into London this is a trigger. In the third episode of the docuseries, Harry explained that the therapy for him is not about prevention. He also tried EMDR, eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing, a form of psychotherapy that encourages healing through the recalling of distressing images, with Sandra Oakley, an EMDR consultant, featured in the new documentary describing it is a relatively new form of trauma-informed therapy. According to Harry, EMDR is always something that he wanted to try, with the Duke revealing that he never would have been able to open up in the therapy if he hadn't put the work in over the last 4 years. For Harry, one triggering moment in memory is flying into London, which he said always makes him feel worried, concerned, and a little bit tense and uptight. As I could never understand why, I was aware of it. I wasn't aware of it at the time when I was younger, but I also started doing therapy and stuff like I became aware of it and was like, why do I feel so uncomfortable? And of course, for me, London is a trigger. Unfortunately, Prince Harry, because of what happened to my mom and because of my experience and what I saw, Harry told Oakley that in these moments, he feels that if he is being hunted and helpless, that his anxiety stems from his absence, that he cannot do anything about it. There is no escape. There is no way out of this. During the therapy, the soon-to-be father of 2 said he would instead tell himself these moments that he is not helpless and has nothing to be afraid of. Harry has learned you need to process in order to be able to heal. After Harry spent a large portion of his life ignoring his trauma, he said one of the biggest lessons he's learned is what you've sometimes got to go back and deal with really uncomfortable situations, and to be able to process it in order to be able to heal. He said, that's why I'm here. That's why my wife is here now. According to the royal, by keeping this and undergoing therapy, he feels that he is now equipped to take on anything. On his regrets and history repeating itself. As for whether he has any regrets, the Duke said that his biggest regret is not calling out the racism Meghan was facing in the relationship earlier. I just don't think that was the case, Harry. Do I have any regrets? Yes, my biggest regret is not making more of a stance earlier on my relationship with my wife, calling out the racism when I did, he said. Harry then compared his relationship with Meghan, who is half black, to that of this mother's with Dodi Al-Fayed, receiving that he felt history was repeating itself, and as for his mother, was also targeted by the paparazzi. For dating someone that wasn't white. History was repeating itself. My mother was close to her death while she was in a nursing home with someone that wasn't white. And now, look at me. That wasn't white. And now, look at what's happened. You want to talk about history repeating itself? They're not going to stop until she dies, she said. According to Harry, he is speaking out because he wants to end the cycle, a cycle which he said his father, Prince Charles, used to tell him and his brother was unavoidable. He said, it's incredibly triggering to potentially lose another woman in my life. The list is growing, and it all comes back to the same people, the same business model, the same industry, because my father used to say to me when I was younger, he used to say to both William and I, well, it was like that for me, and it's going to be like that for you. Harry said his father's mindset is one that doesn't make sense to him, and continuing, that doesn't make any sense. I suffered. That doesn't mean that you have kids that have to suffer, and quite equip the opposite. If you've suffered, do what you can to make a call. Lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry, I lost track. Okay, but suffered, and do what you can to make sure whatever experiences negative and that you've had, that you can make it right for your kids. I think Harry, instead of trying to get a therapist to help him work this out alone or trying to figure it out with Meghan, should have immediately, the therapist should have encouraged him to talk to his grandmother, his mother, his brother and his father, because I think they would have gladly listened to him, and I think still would. I think just the way he's thrown darts at them to accuse them of things is just wrong. But anyway, I want to know what you think, and I think that's the last thing on this. Yes, and there was the Me You Can't See when he was showing the meditation and talking about things that he does to ease his anxiety and all. I just think it's wrong, in my opinion, for him to go blaming anyone. I think that everybody has made mistakes, but I think the royal family generally loves Harry and have really tried to embrace Meghan. But I guess what matters is how he feels. So let me know what you think in the comments. All right. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you. And hey, I'm sorry about my scratchy throat. My allergies have been bothering me the last 2 days. And so I'm just a little bit dry in my throat and sinuses. But guys, go watch the video for Bookworm. And I think you'll really enjoy